You're listening to Lights, Camera, Latino, the podcast, hosted by Ángel Fabián Rivera. Remember to follow us on all social media platforms as Lights, Camera, Latino and Ángel Fabián Rivera. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Lights, Camera, Latino, the podcast. This is a place where we dive deep into the captivating world of entertainment and people who are changing the industry. And I'm so excited for today's episode because we are going to be talking about something very interesting and something that really captivated my attention when I saw the name of the movie, of this documentary we're going to be talking about today. And I'm so excited to bring in the director of the project today. And today on the podcast, I'm joined by filmmaker Scott Cummings, a New York-based director, writer, and editor whose work has been showcased at world-class festivals and institutions like the MoMA, the Center Pompidou, Rotterdam, and CPHDOX. His award-winning films include Buffalo Juggalos. Oh my God, that word.
That's okay. Juggalos, yes.
Juggalos. Adversary, and editing credits on acclaimed works like Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, and Wendy. Scott is here to talk about his bold and fascinating new feature-length documentary, Realm of Satan, which gives us a rare, intimate look inside the Church of Satan. The film explores the lives, the rituals, and personal stories of modern Satanists, capturing both the ordinary and the extraordinary in ways that are funny, unsettling, and deeply human. Scott, thank you for being here with us today.
Hi, Angel. Nice to meet you, and thanks for asking.
Yes. How's everything up in New York right now?
Everything is good. Summer's winding down, and it's just been like a kind of a chill summer, which is nice. Doing a lot of writing, which has been great. I'm very happy because I've really been able to focus on writing, which is something I'm generally not good at focusing on. So it's been kind of a banner summer for me. And then I finished a bunch of things that I've been putting off writing for a long time. So
I love that. You know, you're creating and you're using that because I know people told me that this summer in New York it was a little chillier than usual, right? Is it going away?
No. It was pretty brutal here.
Actually, it
was like 95.
Oh no!
Yeah. But the reason why I've been writing, and I told you this before, but I'm recovering from breaking my knee and having surgery. So I've been stuck in the house, unable to walk for a few weeks, and actually that has forced me to sit down and really just like, it's like a big highlight of my day now to like write instead of. It's like my escape at the moment. So it actually ended up like making my summer good.
Good. Well, how's your recovery doing right now?
It's going good.
Yeah, it's going good. How long since the surgery?
2.5 weeks. 2.5.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But so we had our premiere actually. We had our theatrical premiere in New York on August 4th, I think, and I think I had the surgery on July 30th or August 1st. So whatever it was. So I ended up going to the premiere in like a wheelchair, like really hopped up on like painkillers, not in a fun way. I have almost no memory of it at all, actually. I know it was nice, but I don't remember much else. So
you were there.
Yeah.
That's all you know.
The pictures seem great. It's just so funny to like build to this thing and then be like, yeah, I think that happened. And it seemed good, but yeah.
Well, did you at least smile for the photos?
I did.
That's a good thing. You were smiling for the photos, that's what people get from it. And hey, you were there.
We had a very nice Q&A, and I was very chill during the Q&A. It was like I was just like having a good time cruising. So it was kind of it was nice in many ways.
Oh my God, that's great too. But I love it. Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? Like they always say the show must go on no matter what, right? So you did it. You put yourself in there because again,
I
like after you put all your work into something,
right.
into this project, then not being able to go to your own premiere, that's not it.
Yeah, it's also so uncommon now for kind of smaller movies to have theatrical runs, and like, that was like a big
Mhm.
I mean, it was like one of the most important things to me is I had some theatrical run, and the fact that it happened was like this amazing thing, and then to almost have it totally sabotaged was like, oh god, my luck. But no, it was great. It ended up being great, and like, the screening was really awesome. But
Oh my God.
it like gave a new meaning to Break a Leg. Like
Yeah.
it really did do that in advance.
Break a leg. Oops.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh no. But at least you're back again. You're getting you're getting better by the
Yeah,
day, and that's good. It takes
totally.
time, but you're gonna get back on your feet. As you were before that. So I'm
Yeah,
excited
yeah.
for that.
Yes.
Yeah. So Scott, you've worked on a wide range of films.
Yep.
Also, not only as a director, but also as an editor, right?
Yes.
So, what drew you to make Realm of Satan your first feature-length documentary?
I went to film school to become a filmmaker, and I went to film school to become a fiction narrative filmmaker. And I went later in life. I had been like a teacher for a few years before, and I traveled and lived international. So I taught English internationally
Oh wow.
for many years actually, and decided at some point, like, I was kind of, I loved it, but I also was like, if I could do anything else, it would be a filmmaker.
Mm.
So I ended up getting into film school, moving to Los Angeles, and kind of committing to learning filmmaking and making films. And I made some films at school that did like actually pretty well for student films. But when school finished, I just didn't really have. I mean, I didn't. It was a tough time. It was like
Mm.
during the economic crisis in like 2008, 2009. There wasn't really any work. I couldn't break into the industry, so I didn't really have like funds to make my own work
Mm.
anymore. So I really just dedicated myself to like, okay, how the heck can I like live in this industry? Like, what can I
Mm.
do? And I always loved editing, and that was also something I loved in film school. So I just started kind of like applying for editing things and internships and working for free. And I kind of built a career as an editor. But that filmmaking,
Mm.
what do you
Yeah, it
call
was
it? That
like
film
yeah,
that was still in there, and it
yeah.
was actually kind of like gradually making me crazier and crazier as I got older.
Like,
Um,
hey, I'm still
yeah,
here.
and actually, like the worst part is like the more you put it off, then the more it kind of starts to self-sabotage. So I would
Mm.
I would recommend people do not just do it if you can.
Just do
Just
it.
do it. Just do the first feature. It's not a big deal when you've done it. It's very intimidating to do it, but once you've done it, it's like, oh, I've done it now. I can do it again. But I did end up. I moved to New York in 2010, and I made a medium length film called Buffalo Juggalos, which you mentioned, in
Mhm.
2013, and it premiered in 2014, and it did very well in terms of like a film of that length. It played at
Mm.
tons of festivals. It won prizes. It won the Cinema Eye honors, which is like
Oh,
the
nice.
kind of a major documentary award. And I had never made really nonfiction before that. And it was
Mm.
also quite a weird movie, much like Realm of Satan is. It's very similar to Realm of Satan. It's not a straight documentary at all. For the film, I collaborated and moved in with a group of juggalos in my hometown. Juggalos are rabid fans of the band Insane Clown Posse, so they wear like the clown masks and makeup, and the clown paint, and they like kind of rep a certain kind of lifestyle. They're pretty hardcore,
Oh, yeah.
and they were very. Nowadays I feel like they've come into much broader acceptance, but at that time they were very, very maligned, and I thought they were interesting because they were so maligned, and I wanted to take them
Wow.
seriously. So I quit my job, and I moved, and I made this film, and that kind of kicked me back into making stuff. And it took me a long time, but I finally got up the resolve and the idea to make this next thing. And I made a couple shorts along the way. I made something for Field of Vision called Adversary, which is like a much more straightforward documentary. But this was more back to the method I did in Buffalo Juggalos, where I like kind of infiltrate a group of people and kind of become a part of their community and sort of kind of collaborate with them to make something that I feel like represents both of us. And so that's what Realm of Satan is, actually.
What I love that the practice that you do when you do these documentaries is you kind of like want to adopt the lifestyle, right? Like you kind of like want to feel the inside, right? Because you move in with the Buffalo Juggalos and for Realm of Satan, you almost see kind of the same thing, right? Like you immerse yourself very into the you know whatever's happening inside, and that makes the film feel more authentic, I believe, right?
Yeah. So I mean, when I think like what became a big thing for me is and why I kind of drifted away from fiction filmmaking is that I don't love like sitting down and writing, which is nice. I have this summer now, and that's actually my plan for the rest of the summer was to go spend time with these other people I'm starting to work with to develop something else, but I can't do it because now I have a broken knee, so I'm stuck writing. But it's great because I actually did the work. But writing isn't that fun for me. What is fun is like meeting a bunch of people I don't know that are unique or maybe interesting to me, or offer like an experience for me, like my own experience to like spend time with. And that like kind of comes back from like when I traveled a lot, I think, because I missed that part of my life where I like, you know, would like just show up in like Cambodia, not knowing anyone or anything, and just like figure it out. And like, you know, that I have a kid now and I'm older, that's gone. But this is like kind of my way of still being able to do that. Where it's like, oh, like I'm interested in this kind of, I mean, even traveling, I was generally more interested in like extreme situations or extreme places, not like France or, I mean, not saying anything bad about France, but you know, like I never would go to like England. I would go to like, you know, like I'd want to go to like North Korea or like, you know, whatever. Or former Soviet states or places like that. And, you know, like I still am looking for that thing in people though now, or sometimes in places too, but like, you know, it's the experience of that.
It's the experience. Yes. And that's what I love about the work that you do, right? Because you're doing something different. You're looking for this particular character. You're looking for real people, right? And why they do what they do, because I think that's very important in human nature that we don't know, right? Like why do you do this? Why do you practice this specifically? Like I want to know in depth, right? Like why? And I think as a filmmaker, right, that's very interesting, and that makes you feel like, okay, let me go in and see and investigate and see the why. I understand too, because I think it's showing, you know, I think what you do is also like showing you showcase what these people are seeing through their eyes, and that's the beauty of it.
So for me, that's also part of the what draws me to it, is that I like kind of living in their world and looking through their eyes a bit, and also kind of giving that experience to them, like letting them see through my eyes a bit. So it becomes like an exchange. We become like a new community.
Yeah,
it's like a version of their community, but with me.
But with you.
But like, you know, that I try to kind of like check my ego a bit at the door. I mean, you know, which we all have, but I try to like suspend. I mean, the first time really I did this was with the Juggalos, where I wasn't like really into the music or anything, but I just wanted to like suspend all of my ideas about them and all of my thoughts about them and think about like, oh, what's like interesting about them? And like in 100 years, like, will people think this was like an interesting thing? Like in 100 years, people are going to look back and be like, oh, there were like these like clowns that live in like the hood, and they like walk around and they like have this whole culture that's like really weird. And like in 100 years, people are going to be like, wow, that's really cool and crazy.
Exactly.
And the same thing with the Church of Satan. People are in 100 years will be like, oh, there was a Church of Satan in like
Exactly.
1966 and in 2025, and like, wow, that's so interesting. And like, I think that's what I'm looking for in a way.
Yes. And talking about the Church of Satan, because in your director's statement I was reading, you describe your first encounter with the idea of the church when you were back in high school. So can you share a little bit of that about that experience?
I forgot that story. I'm glad you reminded me of that. So when I was in high school, like I went to Catholic school actually for most of my life. Like I'm from Buffalo, Niagara region, like Western New York, which is not like a place with a lot of opportunity, especially when I grew up. My parents sent me to Catholic school in part because they were forced to by our church. I was actually like I was like a punky skater kid, but I was like, I like had fantasies of becoming like a priest and stuff when I was younger, because I thought that was like a great job.
Wow.
You like could live for free and like everybody liked you and like it seemed really cool. And then I ended up in high school and I got more into like heavy metal and stuff, which is kind of the gateway for a lot of weird people, I guess. And weird too, like those things all came like around the same time. And I grew my hair out. I was like kind of a scrub, to be honest. And I was just like walking around the school one day, and this like jockey kid came up and said, "Hey man, I heard you're the Satanic Bible kid." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah, I heard you sell Satanic Bibles." And I was like, yeah, I do. And then but I'd never even heard of the Satanic Bible. And then I looked, and then I looked into it, and I found it at a local bookstore or whatever, because it was in every bookstore at that point. And I'd seen Satanists on TV, like some of the people in the film I'd actually seen on TV by that point in my life. Which is funny. But and then I kind of, but I leaned into it, even though I had no idea what he was talking about. And so that was kind of my first people are associating me with this thing. I had not really looked into it much until I started the film, beyond normal pop culture things. I knew a little bit about it. I knew who Anton LaVey was, who's the founder. But I didn't really know anything about their beliefs. I knew they were from San Francisco, and I knew they'd started in the 60s or 70s, if it was 1966, but I didn't know at the time. And, that was all I really knew. I was kind of I knew they were an interesting countercultural group, and that was it. And then it kind of hit me one day while I was just working at a, just at work. It was post Buffalo Juggalos, and I was looking for people to make a new film about and with, and it was well, who's more Juggalos are a kind of a high bar in terms of transgressive, interesting characters. And I was well, who the heck is more transgressive than Juggalos that has a cultural reputation, not necessarily a bad cultural reputation, but a cultural reputation that the name means something to people. And it just was oh, the Church of Satan, I should look into them. It was just a totally came into my head thing. And then that was kind of,
and you started getting into it. So you started getting, high school years, you had that encounter, and then years later you were oh wait, the Church of Satan, actually, let me look into it. So how did the project started actually? When you said okay, I'm gonna look into the Church of Satan, and I believe you went into it, right? You started visiting, and then that's how we started.
Exactly. So so it was actually about 20 years, scarily, from that high school moment, or more than 20 years from that high school moment to me going to meet them. But I actually, I was actually just kind of wasting time at work, trying not to work. And I just started kind of falling down an internet rabbit hole about the Church of Satan. And I was okay, what are these guys about? And then I was reading into other groups that, have, because there are other, left-hand path religions that identify with Satan as well. But the Church of Satan was the one I was interested in, because they were the ones I had always known about. They were the ones from my childhood. They seemed to be the oldest, or they are the oldest. And so that was kind of what I mostly dove into. It was funny. I just went on their website and it said contact us, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna like cold write these guys and just see what happens. And like I like 3 days later they wrote back, which this has happened to me a couple times where I like write to somebody really like random, is like really much more weird or sketchy people sometimes even than that, and then I get a letter back and I'm like, who the hell is this? And then I'm like, oh my god, it's like this insane person I contacted. They wrote me back, but they did write me back, and they were kind of like, no, we're not interested. But then I kind of kept at it, and I had a screening in New York not long after Buffalo Juggalos, and I said, well, one of the reasons why I was also quite interested in them is I knew they were based in New York State, and I thought they were based in New York City, and I just had a kid. So that process of like living with the people, going to live in a Juggalo commune is not so possible for me anymore because I have a baby. And it was like, oh, they live in New York, I can like deal with that. So I invited them to a screening in New York, and they still said no, they weren't interested in the film, but they'd send somebody to see the movie and report back to them. And that happened, and that was kind of like what got me my initial meeting there. So
wow.
Yeah, it was fun.
And how was the process on getting them like really in it, like sold to the idea that you were gonna start making a whole film about them and interview them and go through their lives, and how was that process of like them like really accepting it?
I think it was interesting. It was it went pretty smoothly because the first person I met at that screening that I just mentioned was a Satanist who's about my age. He lived in New York. He moved recently, and it was also another one of those situations where I'd forgotten that they were even coming, and there was a guy waiting to talk to me, and I was looking at him. I was like, "Whoa, this guy wants to talk to me," and that he just looked like he might be a Satanist, and I was like, "Oh man, I bet that's the Satanist." He came. And it was actually the same.
It was.
And actually, we kind of like just that sounds like I'm diminishing him, but actually we just kind of became like regular friends pretty quickly. We just started like hanging out and like getting drinks and like in like a New York way, not in like this is my subject I'm pursuing way. We would just like go to like stuff together.
Yeah,
because I liked him actually, and we had similar interests actually. So I was like, oh cool, I have like a new friend who also just happened to be like a pretty high ranking Satanist, and then he kind of gave the nod to the high priest. So I went up to see the high priest, and I sent him Buffalo Juggalos as a film to watch. I said, look, if you watch this film, you'll kind of get what I'm interested in. It's not a normal documentary. They've had a lot of documentaries made about them. They've had a lot of bad TV documentaries made about them, like on the History Channel and stuff. So I said, it's not going to be that. It's going to be something totally different. It's going to be more like artistic. I think like maybe you'll connect to it. If not, that's fine. But let's meet up about it. And he watched the film and he liked it actually, and he got it. He was very smart. And that was Peter Gilmore, who's the head of the church. And he is, I guess Peter's in his mid 60s, maybe early 60s, mid 60s now. He lives a couple hours from New York, actually, in the Hudson Valley. And he is he lived in New York for many years, so he's also kind of like a savvy New Yorker in a lot of ways. So like things like artsy things don't like freak him out. He worked in the art world. He went to he does music and he paints and stuff. So he was like he kind of got it on that level. And then he's also like this huge cinephile. So it was like really easy to connect over like he was just like on the same page as me pretty quickly or almost right away. Like he like just got excited about the idea of doing something different, something like more creative together, and like something a little bit more cinephile-y than like normal documentary stuff. And then because he's the high priest, I mean his word goes pretty far, so his recommendation goes pretty far. So he would kind of like introduce me to people, and it was a long process, but it took a while to get money and stuff. a long while, and COVID happened also. But he would kind of introduce me to people who he thought might be interested or be willing to do something like this, who had time. A lot of people in the film are like kind of a little bit older because they're kind of more they're like longtime members. Actually, they're not like the fly in the wall. They just fly. What do you call it? The person who just joined. They're not fly by night Satanists. They've been committed for, most of them, 10, 20, 30 years.
Wow.
In one case, I think 45 years.
Wow.
So long time. So they know them quite well, and he would he vetted me for them and then kind of give them the nod. But I of course had to talk to them too, but most of them were like pretty open, because it was clear that Peter and his wife Peggy were like excited about it, and kind of just excited about the project. I don't know. It just was like interesting for them. And I think it's like something that, it's also like, a lot of them are like longtime Satanists because they're older, and it's like interesting it's something to do. It's interesting.
And I believe there's not a lot of people that that really reach out to them and say, hey, let's make a movie. We want to make a movie about your life and the lives that you guys live, and we want to get to know more about the religion and everything. I also believe that that you were one of a million, so I guess they were like, okay, let's really do this.
It was kind of like an honor, actually. It actually made a weird pressure for me, of course, too, because then it's like, oh God, they're like they would even say it. They'd be like, this has to be really good, and I'd be like, jeez, I'm gonna try. And also, when you make a film, and especially when you get into the editing phase, you start to kind of sink into despair. Usually, that happens with everybody. And of course that happened with me, and I was like, oh God, what do we do? The whole time we were editing, and and then that passes. I mean, that's a normal thing, but it's hard. But I would have to kind of put on the brave face when I talk to him, like, everything is great,
everything's good,
really good. Where I at home, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I was like, but no, I mean, it was really that, and I would talk to the people beforehand. Talk to the people on the phone, and several people I got closer to as like just humans, not just people in the movie. There's some people who I've met once and may never meet again, but there's other people I talk to is really so.
So Scott, you were talking about the in getting immersed in the world. You shot this over 2 months, like around 2 months, more than 2 months, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So we shot. It was a weird thing because we shot a little bit right before COVID happened, and then COVID happened, so we just stopped. So we were actually supposed to shoot this film several years ago, but because the film involves going into people's houses and like really close quarters interaction, like, I mean, COVID killed.
It was impossible,
But then after COVID, and it was a lot to get it up and going again, but we did. And I think we ended up shooting, we shot for about 60 shoot days, which is a lot of days, but spread out over the course of maybe like 9 months or something. So like we would generally shoot for a couple days and then stop for a couple days, and then shoot for a couple days and stop. And then we'd go on a road trip for 3 weeks and come back, or we traveled internationally for a couple weeks and came back. So it was like a little bit, it was like piecemeal a bit.
And you mentioned too that you always wanted to have like a small crew, and sometimes even 3 people, right? And why was that so important to you to have like a smaller crew?
I think there's a lot of reasons. One thing I have noticed, because I've like edited like pretty big movies now. The biggest movie I edited was probably this movie Spaceman that's on Netflix. It was an Adam Sandler movie, and it's like an $80 million movie or something. And one thing I've just seen is that more people doesn't actually always mean more freedom or more, and actually sometimes it means less. And kind of the more crew you have, sometimes the less freedom. It's hard to explain, but all of a sudden, like there becomes a more standardized way of doing things. So I knew that I would have to use a real crew a couple days because I needed some Steadicam stuff, which is like stuff that involves like a real operator and a real budget and like real lighting. But I also knew that because of the nature of the project, because it's like intimate, I couldn't bring like even like 6 people to some of these places, you know, like 3 to 4 people max. And I had a very great cinematographer, and we found a very great like 21-year-old recent college graduate assistant. And I really like, there's like a very big difference in 21-year-old recent college graduates. Like there are some of them that are like totally useless, and then this guy was just like this like godsend. He like was
ready.
so excited, so eager to do everything, just like totally along for it, like having such a good time. And you know, the 3 of us kind of just worked together to make it happen. And sometimes it's just easier with only a few people, actually. Like, and a lot of times, you know, like I've seen it so much myself, but working on bigger films or TV or whatever, you know, people have these huge light packages, and then it just looks like very light. It's like, doesn't look like, it's like, it doesn't look like good or bad. It's just like, oh, there's like lights on the movie, like it's like bright, but it doesn't like have like really character or anything. And kind of character comes from like navigating, I think, restriction. So like the idea of restriction and working with that is nice. But you know, I've also seen like, you know, my partner's a director. She's worked on, you know, first a very small movie, next a slightly bigger movie but still small, and then next 3 times bigger but still small. But the more money never meant more shooting days.
Exactly.
It just meant paying more people and dealing with more people, actually. And it actually very rarely, most of the time we were like, why do we need all these people? What do we need this for?
Like the smaller the better. And again, like you brought people into that really knew, you know, the filmmaking as is general, right? Like it was not specifically one person for camera. They knew also how to play with sound, how to play with lighting, I believe, right? Like you all were like, the 3 of you were knowledgeable of everything.
Yeah, and also one of the nice things about it, which, you know, it's not so nice in a way for me, but from me, but because there's so few of us and we have equipment, it generally means like all of a sudden the people in the movie are like helping us carry stuff and helping us do stuff. So then they become part of like the production. Like they're actually like all of a sudden they're like moving things around in the background and doing production design and looking at the camera to see what, like, if it looks okay, and like you know, so then they kind of become the crew too. So it kind of, I don't know, it just makes a different kind of camaraderie and like an experience. And like,
and the creative process, you know, it's different, and it's like, okay, we're all collaborating together, and I believe that makes it better too, you know.
Yeah. It also was nice because we did have 3 really big days where we probably had, I mean, really big for me is like 18 or 20 people on the crew. And those were very stressful days because the more people, the more stress. I mean, they were really fun in a different way, but I was like so relieved when they were over, because when it just came back to me and the DP and our assistant, that was just more like our speed, you know. So yeah.
Oh wow. But I love that. I love that's a different one. You know, it's a different way of creating, and it's also it opens doors to so many other creatives, you know, spaces, and you know, I always say like the creative juices, right? Like they flow differently in that specific way. Scott, you spent years, you know, getting yourself in this world, like immersing in this. There's a lot of misconceptions about, you know, Satanism, right? And you know, a lot of my audiences, for example, they're Latinos, right? And there's a lot even into that. What surprised you the most when you know, got yourself into this world, that you were like, oh wow, I thought this was different, and now, you know, I see it?
Yeah. Well, I think what surprised me the most, there were several things. One of which is that the Church of Satan, and this is because it's older, but you know, it's very there are a lot of like kind of normal older people who are members, and that you may not assume were members. or if you didn't know, they might just be like your retiree neighbor or whatever. And that was like actually one of my favorite things. And unfortunately, like that was kind of the thing that was toughest to show, because a lot of those people are totally undercover, so they don't reveal to anyone. So they're kind of closeted Satanists who are practicing, but I couldn't put them in the movie because they are not coming out of the closet as Satanists. That was kind of interesting. I didn't really know. I mean, there's a lot of like quirky things that were kind of funny, like just like really. I understand them now in retrospect, but I was like totally baffled by a couple of them when I first learned them, which is like the three that always stick with me is most Satanists are into tiki. Most Satanists are into Prince, the musician, and most Satanists are into, or not most Satanists, but a lot of Satanists, including, I think, LaVey himself, but for sure LaVey's family, are into Disneyland.
Wow.
And it's an interesting thing because it goes very much with their philosophy of creating an environment that you want to live in, and that's what Disneyland is about, right? It's like a world of Disney, and that's what Prince is also about, because he lived in this like fantastical palace in Minnesota that's all Paisley Park or whatever, and everything's purple, and he like had this kind of like character he was able to build that actually is totally connected to Satanism. I mean, not in terms, I mean, he was a Jehovah's Witness, but like the idea of creating this character that lives in this world that they want to live in is very satanic. And then also the tiki thing, I think it's just a funny thing, but they really like tiki. I mean, I could probably do a deeper dive, and I'm sure there's like more specific reasons. But tiki is like definitely just a thing that just constantly appeared. But I guess like the other thing I kind of always assumed, or I was happy when I found out it wasn't all just like heavy metal teenagery kind of like, and actually like
what
to
people
be honest,
think. What would you think, and again, going back to your teenage self, what people, that kid thought, because the way, the music you heard, and the actions and the way that you portray yourself, they thought it was that, but it's actually more to that.
I think it's funny. It's those people generally it never was what those people thought it was when they would join, I think. So they often wouldn't stick around, Peter, the head of the church, only listens to classical music. He doesn't know anything about heavy metal music, and he doesn't want to know anything about it. He like has zero interest. Peggy, his wife, loves Prince, and also listens to classical music, but loves Prince a lot, which is awesome. But like the idea of like the death metal, black metal, I mean, there are some of them. That is a thing that exists, and there are some people who have been around who are that. But a lot of the people are a little bit more like erudite, I think, than you would. They're just more erudite than you'd expect. There's more interests that are all over the place, and a lot of the people had kind of very passionate interests that were often very, all just very different kinds of things. So I know. I that's very interesting to me too. Because in my mind, right, like that. I think those are the things that we put in our minds, that we think, oh, these people have to be that certain way because it's how society portrays them. But no, there's actually more to it. And you getting yourself immersed in this world, you actually saw the reality a lot of these people live. And with that, I want to ask, because you mentioned the tiki part, you mentioned Prince, and I know a couple of these things made it into the movie, and I know there's a couple of like there's a lot of humor involved in it and seriousness. How do you balance those things and really put it out there? Thanks for asking that, because that's a big part of things for me, actually, and it's a very tricky line, actually. I think with the people in the movie and the Satanists, it seems so funny to call them the Satanists because I know them so well, but with the Satanists in the movie, or with Satanists in general, a lot of like the original influences that went into the creation of what is now Satanism were from like early horror movies and like 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and film noir and things like that. And there's a lot of like love for that kind of stuff in their world. So there's a lot of like I mean, Universal horror is like you know, old school Universal horror, like Todd Browning or whatever is like a big touchstone for all of them, as is like a certain kind of like, you know, like I not all of them, but a lot of them, you know, like kind of like kitschy fun stuff. I mean, it's not, there's a sense of humor to it all. That was there from the beginning. I mean, Anton LaVey, despite kind of like earning this public image as like the Prince of Evil or whatever, when he started the religion, he was kind of like he was a prankster actually, and he was like a bit of he was like you know, he was having fun a lot of times and like just embracing things he loved, and like, but he had a sense of humor always. And you know, I found that was pretty clear right away. You know, like a big touchstone for the movie for me was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and that was a movie that everybody was like, oh yeah, like in the Satanists. So it was like, oh wow. It was like, you know, like the humor aspect of it kind of goes a bit along with like the period of kind of like horror and like spooky stuff that everybody was kind of raised in, that the church encompasses, or you know. So I guess like that was always like a clear thing that was going to be there. It's always a tricky line to like make sure the humor is the right kind of humor, like that the joke is like a joke for me and them, not like it's okay if it's their joke, but it's not like I'm trying not to make it a joke about them. I'm trying to make it a joke. I actually like the idea of making a joke about the audience for me and them. And that was also true in the other film too, where it's like all of us, there's like a sense that like we're in on it together and like kind of like fucking with the audience a bit, or like joking with them. And that's kind of the tone I'm trying to like hit. And even if something is silly, it's silly, but we know it's silly. We did it on purpose, you know.
Exactly.
Like, and like, you know, like I think one thing I like so much about Satanism in general, you know, first off, you know, I didn't say this clearly before, but the Satanists don't believe in a literal Satan. They don't believe in the figure of Satan, because they believe that Satan is a Christian God, like a Christian invention. What they believe in is the idea of Satanism, which is the idea that the self is a god. So they believe that the self is the most important thing. Everything revolves around the self. Everything is in self-interest. And so I guess like, oh, where was I going with that? Shit. I lost it.
Yeah, no, you were telling, you know, about that, you know, you don't want to make the joke. You want to make the joke about the audience, you know, in the audience member when they see it. But yeah,
self-interest. It was coming. It was coming. That had a point that led into more philosophical stuff. There's anyways, what I like so much about Satanism in a way is like there's this idea that like, yeah, you can do black magic rituals, but like, you know, it says clearly in the philosophy of Satanism that the supernatural doesn't exist. So, but you can choose to pretend it exists as long as you know that you've chosen that. Like you can do whatever you want in life. You can like choose the world you want to believe in, as long as you understand that you're creating that world. And so the idea that like, you know, like we didn't create, God didn't create us, we created God. It's the same idea. So we can create something else. So we can believe that magic exists and that it does things, and that's fine. And whether it does or it doesn't is irrelevant, actually. It's kind of a belief system that we're living under. And so like, I think like somehow that played into what I was talking about, and I have no idea how, but it made sense even more a second ago, and I lost it again. Sorry. Something. Yeah. Something about humor. Yeah. So obviously they don't believe that they can fly, but they can believe that they fly in the movie. And that they don't believe that they can fly.
Then don't believe it. Gotcha.
You know that they're not really flying.
They're really flying, but they believe.
But they're like acting like it's real. And so in a way, like it's kind of like a reflection of that. That some of these fun touches are more like it's more like this like weird mental game of like, we can fly, but like of course we can fly. But we're gonna do it in the movie, so
that's all. Everything that you've been saying right now, it's taking me by surprise because there's a lot of misconception again, right? When it comes to like thinking that we know it, but we actually don't know anything. And there's something that there's a saying, right, that people don't know what's happening. The only people that know what's happening is the people that are stirring the pot. We say that in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the same thing, right? Like we don't know what's happening, unless we know what's happening. We actually are inside of it. And this is all very interesting. And you also mentioned something very important that you showcase in the film is the inclusivity within the Church of Satan, right? Like you showcase a lot of queer, trans, and disabled members that are also part of this. And why was that important to showcase it in the film?
For me, like, I think it's worth saying that when the Church of Satan was founded as a religion, which is 1966, very quickly they started kind of openly accepting queer and trans members. And it's kind of been, I mean, I've read that they are the first like official religion, because they became an official religion not long after that accepted queer and trans people. I'm not 100% sure that's true. There may have been others, but like that they were actually pretty early adopters of like I because so much of the religion is about the self and about self-actualization and about like kind of, I mean, it sounds like it's like a very simple distillation, but about like kind of finding the best version of yourself and like just going all in on it. I think like it makes total sense that like, for example, like trans people were a part of it, because it's like, oh, you're like, it just like the philosophy isn't, it gets that I think. I think also it's and queer people too. So there were a lot of older gay men in the Church of Satan, actually. That was also a big surprise for me. I had no idea, but there's a ton, actually. And like just like general occult or like esoteric religions generally attract a lot of LGBTQ people. That's not that weird, but I was super surprised by that. And then the other thing is, it's not a philosophy for everybody, and a lot of people would react negatively to it too. But for some people, like including some of the people in the film who may be disabled, they find like an empowering factor to it, I think, which is that like, it's not about like them becoming, a nuclear physicist or whatever. It could just be about like, oh, I'm living with a disability, but like I'm able to like live on my own, in my own apartment. I'm able to like participate in the community, in discussions online. Like I feel fulfilled by this, and like I'm kind of like actually pursuing like you know, these things I'm passionate about, despite the, you know, in some cases, like a serious disability. So I think that they can kind of embrace the philosophy too. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the main thing.
No, and the philosophy of like self, right? Like you mentioned, self, like self,
Yeah.
you know, like self empowerment, right? That's the word that you were saying.
Yes.
Like that belief too. Also, I believe, you know, I think it's also very important for a lot of people, and a lot of people that don't find that in any other, you know, place and any other religion. That makes you feel like, okay, I can actually stand up for myself, and I can be, you know,
totally
that.
Yeah. I guess I don't want to like take the thorns off of Satanism too much, which I might be doing. A big part of Satanism is also kind of indulgence, and the idea that, like, you know, like you should, I mean, that's also part of living your life in a way by your own rules, but like, you know, indulging the carnal aspects of life, or your inner animal, or whatever you want to say. You know, a lot of those things like involve, you know, sex. So you know, like, you know, the idea of the Church of Satan has always been very much like, you should do sexually whatever you want. It's nobody's business but yours. So in a way, like, you know, I think that was also kind of a big thing at a certain period of time, when, for, you know, like, because they didn't really, it was like, oh, you're John's gay, but nobody, like, yeah, great, that's cool, he like does his thing, like
that's his thing.
I like women with super hairy armpits or whatever, you know, everybody has their own things, and it's like nobody's business actually. And I think that was like a big part of things too, and still is, you know. I don't want to make them seem too shiny happy. I mean, they're still misanthropic, and there's still like plenty of darkness there, but like, you know, there is like and there, you know, it is like ultimately a religion based on like carnal desire and like black magic, but like there are a lot of like, there's like a positivity to it that, like, you know, I think is also super interesting. So
so now all of this is, like you say, like, yes, that's why people have to watch Realm of Satan. You know, they're gonna watch the differences, right, and the good things, and the darker things, you know, and this and that. It's all about, right, like the opposites, and people will get to see that in Realm of Satan. So with that, like, what do you hope audiences take away from Realm of Satan? Like, beyond of the title, like what more you want people to get from it, you know?
I think my most, for me, the thing I always wanted most, and the thing I always want most with my films, is like, I don't want them to be like educational. What I want is for people to have an experience that they couldn't have without the film. So I think, like, I've used this example a lot of times, but you know, like, the first time I went to a big satanic event, the first one I was invited to, was in a big ballroom, and there were a lot of people there. I don't remember how many, but it was full, and it was at a hotel upstate. And, you know, we had like a dinner, and like there was a black mass, and it was like all new to me, and it was like really interesting. And I was like, there's this observer, which was fun, but also like there were like the whole staff of the hotel like coming in and out, and like the wait staff coming in and out, and like I was just like, what is it like for these waiters to like walk into this room and see this and have no idea what's going on, and then walk out, and then like come back in and hear from their friends what they saw, and then like, is this the craziest experience for them they've ever had at this job? Like, this is so, they're like in such a weirdly amazing position where they're like seeing, it's like seeing a UFO, you know, and they're gonna think about this night for like their entire lives. And like, kind of, you know, maybe some of them will figure out it was the Church of Satan and learn about Satanism. Most of them probably won't. Some of them will have no idea what happened. Some of them will be like spinning off into like making things up, you know, like, but for sure, like all these people had some like unique experience, which I think is like really like the kind of gift that's like really hard to give people, like to like really have an experience. So that's kind of more what I want. I want people to like feel like they encountered this thing, like Satanism essentially, but not kind of maybe know how to deal with it. And then they can either be interested or not interested. It's fine. It's fine if they're not interested. They can also go read tons of stuff about Satanism. It's very easy to find all the information you need online. You know, there's even a frequently asked questions you can read and get a bunch of basics down. You know, and like if they're interested, fine. If they're not interested, also fine. Like it's more about the experience for me. You know, so I hope that comes through. And I also kind of like, I mean, I guess like my thesis always is that and I was actually surprised at how clear it was here that the people who are in these communities are always kind of live in a place of risk where the outside world is always kind of afraid of them, but the outside world is actually the dangerous thing. And that happened very clearly with the Satanists in the last few years. There was an arson that's in the film. A house was intentionally burned down because of who lived there. And, you know, like there's a clear danger to them from normal society or whatever. And actually they're not the dangerous ones. And I think that's like universally true of any kind of, you know, group that lives on margins for any reasons actually. But you know, just to kind of like have people understand that, I think is a really great thing.
Oh, I love that. I love that you mentioned the experience, right? I think it's like you say, like you put that example of like going, you know, working at the hotel at that event. It's like, yes, coming in and out, but actually experiencing it. And yes, whatever you do with that afterwards is on you, like you said. You know, you either like it or not. You either, you know, want to get more information and learn more, you can do it. But I love that you mentioned that it's an experience. You get to sit down and really get to see what these people live and really get to see, you know, a little bit more of the inside, right? But not necessarily, you know, you're not living in that, you're just experiencing it. And I love that. I think that's what every documentary should do, right? Like really put you in you know, in that vision of like, okay, I'm here sitting down, like it's happening in front of me. And I think that's very important. I love that you mentioned, and I love that people take away you know, that experience. Scott, thank you really so much for having this conversation. I mean, it was
thanks so much, Angel.
It was 30 minutes, but we've been talking here for a while because it's such an amazing topic, and the way that you got yourself in it, it's beautiful. You know, like it's just, that's what every artist should do. That's what every filmmaker should do. It's really, you know, if you're telling the story, you live in the story, and you literally lived and breathed and ate all of this through all the years that you worked you know, in this project. So, you know, you have a lot to talk about, and that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Where can people follow the journey of Realm of Satan right now, or catch screenings of the film?
It's actually it's on pre-sale on iTunes right now, actually. And I think it will be on, I think September 2nd, it is officially available on iTunes. And then if you're in New York, we have one last screening coming up at Metrograph in September. And then it's going to have like a release on a streamer, but I'm not sure if it's public yet, so I'm not going to say. But it's just going to be on a dedicated streamer, you know, for many years. It's like you know, now under their banner. So it'll be pretty widely available starting in about a week.
Perfect. It'll be is there like a website where people can check out, or Instagram where people can check in like what's happening, and you know, all those updates they can really
the only thing I really have is my own Instagram, just because I'm terrible at these kind of things, or our sales company. But Monument Films is doing the distribution, so you can find stuff on there. My own Scott Cummings film Instagram, I do like sometimes post about, or I've been posting about screenings and stuff like that coming up. But you know, thankfully it's getting close to the end of the. I mean, it's been a nice journey, but we're closing in on the end of the like journey where there's a lot of announcements. Pretty soon it's just going to be online, and you know, live in the world like that. So so yeah, just take a look. I think iTunes is September 2nd. So
Perfect. Yeah. And if people are like, oh my God, we're just type in Realm of Satan on Google and you'll find it. You'll find
yeah,
whatever it is, you find it wherever it is at the moment, and follow your Instagram too, and a monument releasing too. A monumental release,
monument,
right?
monuments.
Monuments.
Yes.
Monument. And yes, check out there too. And yeah, I myself, I want to watch this. I need to sit down and watch it because I really, now that I know everything that you've been telling me from behind, now I really want to sit down and watch it fully. And everyone out there should really experience this. That's what film is about. It's like you said, it's not, you're not giving a class about something. You're just showcasing what it is, what the life of these people are. And I think that's amazing and beautiful. And I'm excited for your journey, Scott. I mean, you
Thank you.
Now, you've been going through all this, and now you got yourself your first, feature long film, and that's amazing, because it's the start of more things are coming up to you. And yeah,
I'm excited too. I mean, it felt like such a hurdle to get over. So I would just, if you're making films, just get over it as quickly as possible, and then you can then you just make stuff. So
yes. Yeah. Well, thank you, Scott. And before we leave, I always like to ask, what's that one piece of advice you give out to all filmmakers out there?
I mean, for me, there's that, but what I just said, but also, I think the main thing I would say is that I think right now, because of the way the film industry is, it's a very strange moment. It's very tricky. There's not a lot of bigger stuff being made, and it's kind of really the moment to make whatever you want, actually, and not think too much about if it's going to sell or anything like that. You really just have to make your own thing, and it's just the perfect time to do it. So don't worry about anything. Just if you have some crazy idea, you should just do it. And that's kind of what we need more of, I think. So I think that's what's going to save the film industry more than watering things down to try to to bring people back. I think it's more about weird with people's specific visions. So just lean into your vision and don't compromise. That's what I think.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's very true, and that people need to really, you have an idea, if you got something, it sounds crazy, go out there and do it. There's nothing better than you doing your own projects too, and again, really putting whatever's in your mind, putting it out there, because somebody else is gonna like it and love it like you. And that's the beauty of it. So thank you, Scott, for sharing that.
Thanks, Uncle.
And I always like to tell audiences out there to support the new stories that are out there, and really there's a lot of our lives in this project, and it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And it's not easy. So we should go out there and support what's the art that's being celebrated right now. And I think your project, it just shows a lot of that, a lot of your passions, and a lot of your years of really being in the business too. So yeah, let's support new stories. Let's support what we're doing. Scott, you're an amazing person. I'm excited to watch Realm of Satan. I'm excited to watch more of your projects, and yeah, let's keep going, and thank you everyone out there who's listening to this podcast. Remember to follow us on Lights, Camera, Latino, and myself, Angel Fabian Rivera. And I always like to end the podcast with this saying, with this phrase that says, when life knocks you down, levántate con más fuerza, keep fighting. So we got to do it. So hasta la próxima. This was Lights, Camera, Latino, the podcast with Scott Cummings.
Thank you.